Who would have thought the Ducks and the Buffs would get this kind of attention? But yeah, prime time's headed toward Eugene, and this should be a fun one. And the scoreboard hopefully is all geared up with enough electricity, enough wattage to handle this one. Got Ryan Winter here, Sports Chat 503, right here on YouTube. Got to get on over there. Check out Ryan's work talking Oregon athletics. Ryan, what's going on tonight?
Man, lovely. Feeling good. This is a great week, man. All eyes are on this game.
It's a spectacle to be sure, and should be a whole lot of fun. And Primetime and his team are bringing fun wherever they go, pulling off a major upset by 3 touchdowns in that opener against TCU as a 3-touchdown underdog, I should say. And then the Nebraska game had all the attention of the big noon kickoff and so forth. And then their big favorite against Colorado State, but words were exchanged, and that turns into a spectacle and turns into a really great game. And they pull off the big comeback. So this has just been the story of stories in college football thus far.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, ESPN, Big Noon, and 60 Minutes was there. I mean, Mark, PBS NewsHour going to do a special on Dion next? I mean, so yeah, I love it. It's perfect timing for Oregon. This couldn't happen. And the way it plays out with them coming to Autzen, I mean, who could have imagined this? This is not a team that we expected to be in the top 25 this early. This is not a team that we expected to have this much buzz around. We knew Dion was going to bring some buzz. We knew that. But the way that it's worked out in the first 3 weeks, Duck fans, we couldn't be happy.
Vegas, though, still needs to see more proof because they're saying Oregon 20.5. I thought that was a little heavy. That's a little heavier than I expected.
100%. I think the point spread, if I were to make it, would be more like 10. But I think they're trying to get a lot of the casual fans to bet on the Buffs. They're trying to make that number so high that people are like, "There's no way," and then they're going to throw that money on it. Here's the way I look at this game: if the Ducks play the way they're supposed to, and they clean up the penalties, and they don't have turnovers, they should win this game. And if they get into a trap, they let these guys play around a little bit. They play the better playground game. If they extend the plays, if they get behind the zone, and they can make some wild things happen. I mean, so I don't count them out at all. I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people think, but I still think that this is a game that the Ducks win.
And Ryan, talk about fun games. Well, if you just want an early, snooze fest or just want to coast home with a win, that's what happened in weeks 1 and 3, of course, when the Ducks were putting up basketball scores. But I locked in on that trip to Texas Tech. That was the game that I watched and really enjoyed. That was a little close for comfort there with a 2-score deficit in the fourth quarter. But if you win against what I still consider to be a quality team on the road, that's all you can ask for.
100%. And you want that game. You want that game in the middle of those games. We went out to Georgia last year and just got absolutely hammered, and that was one way to start the year. This year, you started the year with the Portland State game and absolutely hammer them. It feels like it's a lose-lose. You can't really get the right kind of first game. But you had a good test second game. You had to go down to an environment. It's really raucous. They put on a good crowd there, and they really know how to play football in the Big 12. They don't know how to play maybe much defense as much, historically, but over the last couple 5 years. But the Ducks had that challenge. They came back and showed grit. Colorado did the same thing. Colorado was supposed to beat the heck out of Colorado State, and they had to come back in their fourth quarter and get that thing done too. So I think you've shown that this is either two quality teams that can do what they need to do. But I think Colorado is going to be just a little outmatched with Oregon this week.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the incident involving Travis Hunter, we wish him all the best.
Absolutely.
And he's out.
Yeah, and I
at this point.
Yeah, I saw that, and I didn't like that play at all. As a coach, as a guy who likes sportsmanship, I thought that was well beyond the play. I thought it wasn't even a part of the play. He was being guarded by a defensive back, and here comes the safety over the top, or I don't know what he was playing, outside linebacker or whatever it was, but he came completely out of nowhere. I had a kid when I was in high school get his spleen ruptured in a practice by a guy that we kind of thought was a cheap shot and completely unnecessary. And the guy crumpled just like Travis Hunter did. So as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, that's internal. That's something. It was lacerated liver. I mean, Brutal. So, and Travis Hunter is a great guy. He has a great personality. He's going to be a phenomenal player in the future. This is just a little blip on the radar for him. But he also has a lot of respect for Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning recruited him to Georgia. And, so it's going to be interesting. It is a shame because I do think he's one of the best players in the country. I mean, at least top 1, 2, 3 in the country. With both sides of the ball, with what he can do. I mean, who's doing that?
That's the first time I had ever gotten a chance to see him was the TCU game in week 1, and just knowing that this was the number 1 rated player in the country coming into college, and then he goes to Jackson State. I see some highlights, but I'm talking about just watching him play 141 snaps in that game, like you say, both sides of the ball, and he exceeded my expectations. Just a phenomenal talent, and again, we wish him all the best. On the flip side, folks, 2 rights don't make a wrong. I know Deion Sanders came out during his news conference to say, whoa, on all the death threats coming out against the CSU defensive back.
Yeah. And, things happen in a game. I definitely, when I played, I pushed the envelope and I probably had late hits. But we're in an era now where everybody breaks down the tape and they slow it down. The game happens so fast on the field that, it's hard to say, oh, this guy's trying to, have a cheap shot or whatever. He lowers the helmet here at this point in time. These plays are bang, bang plays. What I didn't like about this play was the ball had already hit the ground and it hit him right in front of him. So the guy obviously knew it was there, or he wasn't paying attention to the ball, which is, again, what are you doing if you're an defensive back and not paying attention to the ball? So I don't know. I think it puts a little bit of a cloud on this game, and you're right. It probably hurts that betting line a little bit. I remember it was a little bit lower than that, and then they moved it up to 20. But Vegas does weird things sometimes just to try to get action on a game, and this could be one of them where they're trying to get people to think, there's no way Oregon's going to cover by that much. And you know what? Oregon might. If Oregon goes and plays the way we think that they can play, then maybe it is that much of a spread. Because going into the season, I thought there were kind of 2 or 3 tiers of talent level in the Pac-12, and I thought Oregon was at the top tier with Washington, with USC, and I didn't expect even a good Colorado team to be on that level. So, if here's the other thing. We talked about how Oregon can't get penalties or Oregon can't get turnovers. If Colorado starts getting penalties and turnovers, they could go real sideways for them quick. So I do think that it's something where Colorado's going to need to play a great game, and Oregon's going to need to give it to them a little bit.
It sounds like we're on the same page when it comes to Colorado, because as soon as I got a read on this team and thought, okay, they're so much better than any of us thought, because I was going, okay, the Deion effect and everything they're putting together, 4-8, they're going to win 4 games this year.
Same thing.
Then they've obviously shown us so much more than that what they look like going into Pac-12 play is a team that if they're having an off night, they're not pitching and catching like they do normally because of the disadvantage in depth, offensive line. That's against the big boys in the Pac-12. There could be some ugly results. They're still going to get their points because they're just too skilled. They're going to get a certain level of points, but there's probably some 52-24 kind of games out there for them against the best in the pack. But when they're clicking, and if they get some breaks, I don't think anybody in the Pac-12 is out of reach on the right night. And they could make it really scary for fill in the blank. Oregon, USC, of course, are the 2 upcoming.
Yeah, and the guys who I've talked with a lot of Colorado people this week, and a lot of have kind of said the same thing, that they actually think they might have a better shot against USC than Oregon because styles make matchups, and they think they might match up better with them. Either way, their best part of their defense is on the back end, and it's the corners. It's about the depth for them, right? When they go through that much of a change up, I mean, they only had 10 scholarship guys from last year. That's outrageous. So, I mean, the fact that they made this thing work and put this thing together so quickly, you got to really respect it. There's a lot of people who don't like it. Yeah. I understand that. There's some traditionalists who don't like it, and you and I might be in that ballpark a little bit as well. But that's the changing face of college football. This is happening so fast. You got to adapt or die. And these are the guys who are going to be able to come in, and they're going to bring in quality coordinators too. I think Deion gets a lot of the respect here, but I think both offensive and defensive coordinators are really, really good. And the defensive coordinator is in the kind of the cut from the same cloth that Dan Lanning is, and they run a lot of the similar stuff. When you look at the defense, they're running a lot of similar schemes. So I really like this matchup. I think it's going to be a great game. I knew it was going to be an exciting game, just having Dion there and having it be the first game of the Pac-12. Everybody was going to be excited for Pac-12 play and to be able to host. But then for them to come out and play the way they did against TCU, I was floored because I thought TCU was going to come out and steamroll. And then, because it got closer to the game, I thought, well, maybe Colorado's got a shot here. But I never really thought Colorado was going to win that game. And the way that they won it too was also great, right? Back and forth game. At one time, it felt like Colorado was going to win. Then at one time, TCU back and forth. That was a great way to start the year. So they're on a roll. And I went there last year for the first time to see a game, and that was one of the worst football teams I'd ever seen. And the crowd was still packed. The crowd was still amped. Colorado Buffs Nation. That's a good fan base, and that's a really strong alumni base that has seen greatness in their past. They've been national champions. They know how to win, and they expect to be there. And they've had a frustrating time in the Pac-12, and I know that they're happy to get out of the Pac-12 for that level alone, but I think it's going to be just a heck of a weekend. But they're into something with the Ducks. The Ducks have been one of the best teams in this conference for now a decade, basically. Having a bad year here or there with the last year, the Helfrich year. But other than that, they've carried the water for this conference for now a decade or two. And Colorado has been one of the worst teams in that same conference during that time. So the last year you get to have this game, the last opportunity, both teams are splitting. The conference is dead. It's going to be an exciting time. And all eyes are going to be on it. 12:30 start on big ABC. The whole country is going to be able to see it. I think a lot of casual fans are going to watch this game.
Ryan, you threw out a word there that I want to latch onto, and it's respect, because that was what I came away from that TCU game, and it's only built from there. But the realization that they've got 88 new players, I think 68 through the transfer portal and 20 on scholarship as freshmen, and that they threw this together, and that they not only flashed and showed speed and space and did all the fun things on offense. They were disciplined, not a lot of penalties. They knew their assignments. For as mediocre, and I'll be kind, as the defense is, they didn't blow coverages. They weren't blowing assignments. They played tough. They tackled reasonably well. I was thinking, this is impressive from a coaching, Dion and staff standpoint of them getting this team prepared for an opener this quickly.
Yeah, and there was going to be some sort of a layover with TCU. I mean, they got absolutely housed that national championship game. They had to return guys. They had to leave guys up, whatever. I felt like the momentum was on Colorado's side. The rest of the country just didn't know it, and we all kind of got stuck in the same recency bias. Well, this team's coming off the national championship. They're going to be this, that, or the other. They're going to, well, hey, Colorado caught hot, and they jumped in there. And before TCU knew it, they were already down, and they were already in a fight, and they were not expecting that either, I don't think. So, point spreads can play with a team. And I hope it doesn't play with the Ducks this week, because it's going to be a hell of a lot closer than 20. I know that. Or it has the potential to be. I'm really impressed with Shidor Sanders. Dion, as a guy who myself has coached my son throughout his youth and whatnot, I think it's awesome that a dad gets to be on the sideline and coach his son, especially at this high of a level, because Shidor Sanders is a really, really good player. We knew he was a good player coming out of high school. He was a good player at the HBCU level, but man, I'm telling you, he can really sling it. And he has so much confidence and the ultimate green light, kind of the Steph Curry type of green light, where he can do what he wants. And that's kind of the good side of having the daddy ball a little bit is, you're not going to get taken out of the game. I mean, so, when the play extends and the first kind of play breaks down and they're just looking to kind of make a play, he can do what he wants with it. A lot of other quarterbacks are hesitant. They're going to throw the ball out of bounds. They're going to look to the sideline and say, okay, cool, on to the next play. Not Shidor. He's looking to make a play. He's looking to extend the play, get the ball downfield, push the ball downfield. They have big plays, explosion plays, and they have explosion plays right when you don't want it. Third down, you extend the play, you think you got him on a sack, ends up he gets out of the thing and throws a 20-yard bomb down the sideline that ends up being a 40-yard gainer. So these are the kind of plays that drive me nuts as a Duck fan, because it happens to us all the time, and I expect it to happen definitely on Saturday.
While we still have you here, Ryan, I want to find out a little bit more about your team. So we talked about Colorado in the offseason, not knowing much about them. I'm sure there were certain aspects of your team you were locked in on, others thinking, hey, I know who the names are, but we'll see what they got once we hit the field. So again, one competitive game, two, not so much. What do you know about the Ducks right now?
Well, I like, first and foremost, the question marks really about the defense entirely, and then about the offensive line. We had a little bit of issues with some guys getting hurt in the tight end room, and it was a little lean. And that seems to all be fine now. Everybody's healthy, and that room is up to shape. But you knew who you had with your quarterback, and you have a backup quarterback, which is very rare these days, right? So the backup quarterback's a dependable guy as well, who's been there, been in the system, knows what he's doing. And you have the running back room is really solid. Running back room looks some of the best running back room we've seen for quite a while, actually, at Oregon. And that's saying something because Oregon's had some really great running backs. And then, the offensive line historically has been really solid at Oregon. And we're just coming at a time right now where you had graduated a lot of guys last year. And sometimes that happens with offensive line, right? They kind of grow up as a unit together, and then they all graduate together. And now you got to have all brand new guys come in. And that's kind of what happened. There's some vets on the offensive line for sure that are going to fill some spots, but for the most part, a lot of the young guys. I mean, there's even freshmen playing on it that have rotated in. They have about 8 deep. They think they can rotate there. So I like the offensive line. That's always the starting point for me personally, position I played and whatnot. But defensively was the real question. Can you put pressure on the quarterback? Can you sack the quarterback? Had a lot of trouble with that last year. Last year was kind of a tough year because at the end of the year, you lost to the Washington State, or you lost to the Washington Huskies because they threw the ball all over the place and you couldn't stop the throw. 2 weeks later, you couldn't stop the Beavs in their running game. They never threw the ball. In the middle of those 2 games, you stopped Utah, and it was the best defensive performance we've seen in probably 10 years at Oregon. So it was really hard to figure out the defense last year. This is a year where it feels like Dan Lanning has one more year in the system. The guys know what they're doing. The coolest thing, I think, for me personally on the defense is they moved a lot of guys down. So they moved some safeties into linebacker positions. And they moved guys, to be able to kind of cover better. Last year they got stuck. They just didn't have the right speed sideline to sideline for the Dan Lanning style defense. So I really like what they've done. They've also had a lot of recruits. Last year they had a lot of recruits come in that played right away. This year they've had a lot of recruits play right away. And these guys are putting in really quality recruits. This Dan Lanning recruiting is at the level or better than Mario Cristobal was for recruiting. So that's got to be said something. Obviously, then the transfer portal. Transfer portal this year, you had to fill some gaps, and you did. You got an extra couple receivers that are really good. And then you have the defensive guys who you needed to fill there. So there's guys on this team. And one of them is Nico Reed, who came from Colorado. He's going to have a heck of a time with this Colorado game. The other thing is you're getting better recruits, but you're also getting better transfers. So instead of getting guys transferring like from a lower division and coming up, or a smaller school and moving up to a bigger school for their last year, you're getting guys transfer from Ole Miss, transfer from Alabama, transfer from Texas, transfer from other places that, somewhat more of a lateral move, right? And get an opportunity here so it helps them advance their career personally. But from school to school, obviously, that says what it says. Instead of going from like a Fresno State to Oregon, or coming from Alabama to Oregon, that makes a big difference to me. So your quality content across the board now, you've got everything ready on paper, and now we got to see if they can actually do it.
Buffs and Ducks. It should be a fun one in Eugene. It's at 3:30 Eastern. Ryan Winter, Sports Chat 503. And my approach this week to this game in particular, and there's some other monumental matchup, is we're going to cover this as much as we possibly can. I'm going to grab everybody I know that can talk Colorado and Oregon football, and you know that you are always on the short list, sir.
Mark, you are the man, dude. I love you. I love what you do for the channel, what you do for college football, and for all of us out there. You're the best out there, man. Absolutely. The voice of college football is not an understatement, people.
Appreciate that, Ryan. You have a great time watching this one.
Hey, we'll do. Yeah, Autzen Stadium, man. I'll be rocking. I'll be pumped. And then we got a couple weeks off. Then we go to Husky Stadium for the big showdown. So we got to get rid of this one first. Got to get through this one. But yeah, no, it's going to be really fun, man. It's going to be a great year. So we'll talk soon, Mark. Thank you so much for what you do. Appreciate you.